Here we have with us Dr. Shitanshu, who is an FMG and currently incoming radiology resident in UK. He's currently working in Royal Blackburn Hospital, and I'm really grateful for him to host this webinar and guide us all. And so please go ahead.
Hi, hello everyone. So welcome all and thank you all for coming, and thank you Muskaan again for organizing this session. I'm organizing this session mostly because so I've only started spreading awareness about this whole UK journey since the last couple of months, and it's quite surprising that not a lot of people they're aware of how the whole journey is, what steps you need to take, and basically the whole system in UK. So I really appreciate you all for coming today. I hope I'm audible and I'm visible to everyone. Could someone just confirm that?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, great. Right, so I've created a presentation. All right, so I'll just share my screen. So I'll just use it as a guide for myself and for everyone else as well. Okay, let me have a look. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, great. So it's not a big presentation because I'll be talking about most of the stuff I will be mentioning in the presentation. So just a little bit of introduction about myself. So as Dr. Muskaan already mentioned, I'm an FMG. So I graduated from Nepal. I am an Indian, but I couldn't get admission into any of the Indian medical colleges after 2 attempts. Okay. So I'm just an average student, nothing fancy. I've not been a topper. Okay, so I completed my internship, as you can see, in January 2018. So I had already thought about coming to UK during my college itself. So I gave the first step, which was IELTS, in October 2017 before I completed internship. And as soon as I completed my internship, I had already booked my PLAB 1 after the IELTS, and I gave my PLAB 1 in March 2018, got a PLAB 2 date for July, and completed my PLAB 2 in July. And after PASA-U, I got my result for PLAB 2 in August, and I applied for GMC registration in October. I was just sorting out my documents and everything. And after getting my GMC registration, I got the first job interview in, I think it was November. So it took me about 1 month. I had applied for around 200 jobs and I got like 10 or 11 interviews. And I chose the job where I'm currently working. And I started working in January 2019. It was actually late December. And recently, I've just secured a radiology residency, which I will be starting in August 21. So I'll be talking about all of these things, IELTS, PLAB, and everything, because some of you might not be aware. You might have only heard of it. Okay, so I'll start with a few basics, okay, because you need to understand the healthcare system of UK before we drill into everything else. So first things, healthcare is free in UK. So if I compare it with India, so you know in India, we have like the government hospitals and then we have private hospitals. And then you have like all the private clinics and everything else. But in UK, it's quite different. Okay, so the majority of people, they are going to use the service provided by the NHS. NHS is National Health Service, and that is the main healthcare system in UK. Okay, there are a few private hospitals in UK, but the majority of population will access the NHS services. All right, the private hospitals, you need to have private insurance, of course, just like India. Okay, but very few people go to private hospitals. Most of them, they just go to any NHS hospital. So even for someone like me, for any of the IMG or people who are coming from abroad and working in NHS, even for us, healthcare is going to be free. Previously, they used to charge us a fees of £400 a year. They have abolished that after multiple petitions. It was really senseless because we, whatever salary we get, we are taxed from that, okay, just like any other British citizen. So there's no point of charging us extra for any healthcare service. So even for us, healthcare is going to be free. Second important point, again, as I mentioned, there are private hospitals, but you can only do your residency in the NHS hospital. So all your training will be in the NHS hospitals. Can you work in private hospitals? Yes, you can. But it's highly recommended you do that after you have completed your residency, because obviously you'll get a higher pay. Okay, NHS is like a government service, so the pay is not going to be great for a consultant, but you can only do your training in the NHS hospital, not in a private hospital. All right. Now, since the day I've started doing all of this, I have been getting a lot of queries that can we come and do some course like MD or MS in UK and start working in UK. There are some paid courses like that, but they do not allow you to work as a doctor in UK. Okay, you have to you have to come via the standard pathways, just like anyone else, if you want to work as a doctor in UK. Those courses are done by people who want to enhance their CV. So a simple example would be like someone wants to do dermatology in UK. So they will still go through the medicine training. They will have to apply for dermatology training application. And during the interview, they can show that they have done some MD dermatology or MSc dermatology course from some private university. So it's just to enhance your CV. You cannot use that degree to work as a doctor in UK. Again, second question, continuing on to that, people ask, if we do that MD or MSc from a private university, is it going to be valid in India? I don't think so, because if a UK degree is not allowing you to work as a doctor in UK, how do you expect it to work in India? Okay, so I will talk about what the system is, what the pathway is, but there's no, please do not waste your time on any agencies who suggest that you can do a private MD or MS in UK. It's not going to be valid. Okay. So understanding, so again, continuing on to the basics, understanding the hospital services and the GP services. So it's just again an introduction to the healthcare system. So GP services, what are GP services? And this is important because there is something called as GP training, which you need to understand later on. All right. So you've got your hospital services, which is again NHS hospital. All right. So you've got your hospitals, and then outside in the community, you've got the general practitioner. Okay, they have their own clinics. Again, most of them, they are funded and run by NHS. Some of them, they do private work as well. But like any hospital consultant, even GPs, they do some private work. So all the hospital consultants, they could be doing some private work as well. All right, along with some NHS service. So what are GP services? To explain this, I'll give you a simple example. What happens? So suppose, let's say I've got some pain in my ear, okay, and I want to get it checked. Now, I know that it's not an emergency. I do not need to have it checked immediately. So what I'll do is I can ring my own general practitioner. Okay, so everyone here in UK has to be registered with a general practitioner. So general practitioner is again a doctor. Okay, they have gone through their separate training to become a general practitioner. So I've got an ear pain. I'm going to ring the general practitioner, and either if he can suggest that he can see me herself, or if there is anything else he or she feels that it needs to be looked by an ENT specialist, he can make a referral to the hospital. Okay, so let's say this GP decides to see me personally, and once this GP has seen me, they will give me a prescription if they can sort out this problem themselves, and I can collect the medicines from the pharmacy. Okay, now let's say they've seen me and they find something odd and they want me to be looked by an ENT specialist. They will make a referral to the hospital service itself, and I will be seen by an ENT person. Okay, so this is how the GP system works. All right, now supposing, let's say I'm bleeding from my ears, looks like an emergency to me, I can directly go to the hospital and I can present myself to the accident and emergency department. Okay, again, I cannot see a ENT specialist directly. There is no provision for that. Okay, if I feel there's something urgent I need to get looked upon, I need to go to the hospital, the emergency department, and get myself checked. So the first person who will be seeing me will be an emergency doctor. If they feel this is something which needs to be looked by an ENT specialist, then they will make the referral there itself, and in the emergency department itself, I will be seen by an ENT specialist. So I hope you understand this whole process. Okay. So the basic points: the general practitioner is a doctor. Okay, they have completed a GP training. It's a separate training program, and to become a general practitioner, it's you can say it's equivalent to like a family medicine doctor in India. Okay, we do not really have a GP system in India, but it could be considered equivalent to a family medicine doctor. Same for US. You have got family medicine doctors in US as well. Okay, so this is how the system is here: a hospital and the GP services. Now, I will be making point about this GP later on again in this presentation. So I'll just carry on to our next slide. So why are we here today? Why am I doing this session? Okay, let's look at the few points why you could think of coming to UK. Why is it a good option? All right. So the first thing, it is easy to get a job after your undergraduation. So let's say most of you, so you are all studying or maybe an internship right now, and obviously the next step would be to give the NEET PG exam. Okay. Now, instead, if you decide to come to UK, you can clear 3 exams, which I will be talking about soon, and apply for a job and start working. Okay. Now, second point, it is easier to get into a residency as well. Okay. So no matter what people have told you or what you might have heard from seniors or blogs or videos or anywhere, it is still easier to get residency compared to any other country. Let's talk about radiology, because I'm going to start radiology. So I appeared for radiology interview last year. I did not make it. This time I made it. This was my second attempt. Okay, so we had 1,700 applicants. Total number of applicants was 1,700 for the radiology training. Okay, and the total number of seats, the total number of radiology posts were 400. Okay, so out of those 1,700, 400 people are going to start radiology training. Now, if you compare that to India, I mean, I will leave that comparison to you. Okay, you can compare it with any other country in the world. I'm just talking about radiology. All right, so 1,700 applicants, and we're talking about 400 posts. So there itself, you see how much easier it is to get into a radiology residency compared to India, US, or anywhere else. Okay, you can do the maths yourself. Third point, the working hours in UK are quite relaxed. Okay, so on an average, a doctor, even a consultant, anywhere from a junior doctor to a consultant, the average working hour for them would be 48 hours per week. It will be less for a consultant, but this is how, on an average, it will be 48. Okay, so you won't be working more than that. If you're working more than 48 hours in a week, the next week you will be working less than 40 hours. That's how your normal rota is going to be. Okay, so it's quite relaxed, and I will talk about this more. Fourth point, you've got adequate annual leaves. Now, if you talk about annual leaves in India as a resident or as a junior doctor, it's very questionable. You don't know how many leaves you really have. It depends on the mood of your HOD or people who are supervising you. In UK, you have a set number of annual leaves. Okay, so for a junior doctor, let's talk about me, I get 27 annual leaves in an year. Okay, and this doesn't include the weekends or the bank holidays. So at the moment, I'm working 1 and 5 weekends. Okay, so I've got 4 weekends off, and I work the 5th weekend. Okay, so I'm only doing 1 and 5 weekends. So all my weekends are off. This is not included in the 27 days. Okay, and bank holidays, like you've got separate bank holidays in UK. So obviously you've got Christmas, you've got Easter, you've got Good Friday. So again, those will not be included in your 27 annual leaves. So 27 is a good number, really. Okay, so talking about leaves, so if I see it that way, I will have at least 8 days off in a month. Okay, again, this is separate from the annual leaves. So if you see, I'm getting 3 weekends off, at least 3 weekends off in a month. So I've got 6 days there itself. Apart from that, let's say I'm doing a night shift. So usually you do a maximum of 4 night shifts in a row. So let's say you're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. So you'll have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. Okay, so you get 3 days off after that. So if you combine all of that, on an average, you will have at least 8 days off in a month. That's quite a good amount of leaves you're getting there. Okay, next point, everyone here is respected. Okay, every healthcare worker. So it could be a nurse, it could be a healthcare assistant, it could be a sweeper, peon, anyone. Everyone is respected. Okay, this is how the British system is in general. It's not just about the healthcare system. Everyone here is respected. Okay, you will realize that once you work in UK. Next point, you can return to India after completing your residency. Okay, this is a important point. So India allows, sorry, is there anyone asking a question? No, okay, I think must be something. Right, so you can return to India after completing your residency. So, and that means if you have completed the full residency program, I will talk about that later on, but all the training, the residency completed in UK is accepted in India. Okay. Second last point, you get a permanent residency in 5 years itself. Okay, so I've been in UK for 2.5 years now. So in another 2.5 years, I'll be getting the permanent residency. So I can stay in UK without getting a visa, and just a year after that, I can get a British passport as well. So the British citizenship. It takes only about 6 years, okay, on a work visa. So it's very less compared to any other country like US or Australia. All right. And the last point, well, for me, it's more like in the top 3 points for coming to UK is traveling opportunities, because I love to travel. And I'll just make a short note on about that. So, for example, I live near Manchester and I'm getting 8 days off in a month. So let's say I've completed a night shift and I've got 4 days off. I can straight away go to any European city. Like if I want to go to Amsterdam, it's like 1 or 2 hours from Manchester, and it's just the flights are really cheap. For it will be about 2,000 rupees one way, so it's quite cheap. Okay, so you've got loads of travel opportunities if you're working in UK. All right, so let's talk about the main things. Okay, the pathways for getting your registration with the General Medical Council. Now, there are three basic pathways: the PLAB pathway, okay, the MRCP pathway, or any membership exam. So you've got different royal colleges. You've got Royal College for every different specialty. You've got a Royal College of Physicians. You've got a Royal College of Surgeons. You've got a Royal College of Obstetricians. So they have got their own fellowship exams. So MRCP is for medicine, MRCS for surgery, MRCOG for obsgyne, and etc. And the third, which has been recently added, is the USMLE pathway. Okay, so let's talk about the PLAB pathway. I think most of you might have already heard about PLAB, and how it. So I will cover this with expenditure as well, because the PLAB pathway is going to be the most common pathway, because most of you who are attending this session might be completing your undergraduation, or might have already done it, and you might be in internship. So for you, PLAB pathway is going to be the best one. Okay, so I will talk about this in more detail, and I will just give a short note about the two other pathways. Okay, so this is with expenditure. So let's say you have started your internship today. Okay, so ideally you should be doing two things in your internship if you're planning to come to UK. First things is give your English exam. Okay, so during my time only IELTS was accepted. Nowadays they accept OET as well. And if you have given any of these exams, it will be valid even for your work visa. Okay, so they have changed everything now. Previously it used to be that only IELTS was accepted for registration and for visa as well. Nowadays it's fine, you can use OET as well. Now OET, as you see, is more expensive, but from what I've heard, from the feedback I've received, I've heard it's more easier than IELTS. The only problem with IELTS is the writing section. Many people get stuck in the writing section because they're quite strict about the writing pattern. OET is easier because so IELTS is very general. Okay, it will cover only the general English topics. There's nothing about medicine in IELTS. So when you book OET, you will be asked for an option. What OET are you going to book? And the OET will be for medicine. So the questions asked in OET will be related to medicine. Okay, so that's why they say it's more easier, and maybe because maybe the reason why it's more expensive. Okay, so the first step is going to be booking your English test. Okay, that's the first step in this PLAB pathway. As soon as you pass your IELTS or OET, you will become eligible to book PLAB 1 exam. You cannot book PLAB 1 exam without completing OET or IELTS, and you cannot book PLAB 2 exam without completing PLAB 1. Okay, it has to be stepwise. So as I mentioned, if you are in your internship, your ideal goal should be to complete IELTS or OET and PLAB 1 during your internship, so that once you complete and pass these two exams, you will become eligible for PLAB 2. And straight away after internship, you can start packing your bags and come to UK for PLAB 2. Okay, PLAB 2 is only held in the UK. All right, nowhere else in the world. It's an expensive exam, £880. But so I'll talk about the total. You can see the total down here, but we'll go through this one by one. So for PLAB 2, you need to come to UK. All right. Most people, they attend the PLAB 2 Academy before giving PLAB 2, because PLAB 2 is, although it's a practical exam, okay, it's like an OSCE exam, but the focus of the exam is more on communication and your consultation skills. They don't care about your knowledge about medicine. They're only looking for communication and consultation skills. That's all they care about. Okay, so most people attend the PLAB 2 Academy to make yourself familiar with the kind of stations that are going to be in PLAB 2. Okay, so I did an academy as well. I'm not going to talk about what academy I chose, because there are 4 or 5 different academies, all have the same passing rates. So just toss a coin and just go for anyone where you want to. All right. So after you completed IELTS, OET, PLAB 1, PLAB 2, okay, so you got 3 exams. So after you completed 3 exams, you become eligible for GMC registration. So GMC registration, GMC is General Medical Council. So just like you have got Medical Council of India, the Medical Council in UK is called the GMC, and you apply for GMC registration. Okay, so again, coming to the expenditure, you can see it all there itself. So you'll be coming to give your PLAB 2 on a visit visa, all right, which is going to cost you about £100. And when you come for your job, when you get a job, you will come here on a work visa. Okay, flights, usually it's about 500 return. Okay, from for example, I travel from Mumbai to Manchester. Okay, I live near Mumbai, so a return flight to me costs about £500. The daily expense when you're coming for PLAB 2, obviously you'll be spending about 2 months for PLAB 2. So the academy is usually for 15 or 16 days, and after that you spend about a month and a half practicing in groups for your final exam. So the daily expense would be about 30 to 40 pounds. All right, that includes your accommodation, food, and everything else. So if you see, the total cost of this pathway is going to be about £5,000. Okay, so which will be about 5 lakh Indian rupees, right? So this is all about the PLAB pathway. Okay, now one important thing, people compare PLAB with USMLE and NEET PG. Why it's wrong to compare these exams? Because if you see, after PLAB, you will get a GMC registration. So after PLAB, you're not getting into a residency. You're only going to start your job as a junior doctor. So let's say, let's talk about an Indian doctor who has completed their MBBS and they did not crack NEET PG. So what are your options? Either you keep preparing for your NEET PG, or you start working as a junior doctor, junior resident, MO, SHO, whatever term is used in different states. Okay, so exactly in the same way, after completing your PLAB, you're only going to start your work as a junior doctor. You're not getting into a residency straight away. All right, now don't be disheartened with this. Okay, I'm going to talk about all this again. So before I go into that, I'll just mention about these 2 other pathways as well. So MRCP, let's say if you want to apply for a medicine job and you have completed all the steps of MRCP, then you can skip the PLAB exam. You can, on the basis of your MRCP exam, you can apply for GMC registration. Okay, you do not need to give PLABs again. So the only significance of MRCP is going to be that you skip the PLAB exam, but you do not get into residency again. All right, so all these exams, PLAB, MRCP, MRCS, they are just like qualifying exams or eligibility exams. Okay, it's like you have to do them if you want to do this or that. It's not going to get you into a residency. All right, I'll talk about that later on. And the last pathway which they have recently introduced is USMLE pathway. So if you have completed USMLE, okay, before the March of 2021, that's what's been mentioned on the GMC website, you can apply for GMC registration. Now I know, why would someone from US who has already completed USMLE, if they've completed all the steps, why would they come to UK? Well, the simple reason is because they might not have matched. Okay, what's the match ratio? Maybe I think it's between 50 to 60% on an average. It keeps varying every year, but still I think it's under 60%. So what about the rest of the 40% people who did not match? So of course, half of them, they are going to just carry on research work or do some more electives or something or the other. Some of them have started coming to UK, okay, because you've already done your steps, and because you've not matched in UK, so UK is in US, sorry. So UK is open for you because they have started accepting people who have completed USMLE. So this is just a recent addition. Okay, so let's carry on. So as I said, the PLAB, after completing all this, the PLAB pathway, you only get a job. So let's say you are registered with the GMC. Now you've got the registration with General Medical Council. You are fully licensed to work as a doctor in UK. So you will start applying for jobs. Okay. Now, two terms I want to make clear over here. Okay. So we call residency in UK as training. So everything in UK will be in terms of training or non-training. So if you are in a residency, that means you are in training. If you're just working, if you're just doing a job, you will be called as a non-trainee. Okay, remember these two terms because they're quite important. All right, there are lots of terms in UK and they are quite complex. I will not cover everything, but these two are very important terms. So training means you are in a residency program. Non-trainee means you're just working. All right, you're not in a training program. So once you're GMC registered, you start applying for jobs. Okay, there is a separate jobs website. It's a central jobs website. Okay, it's called nhsjobs.com, and all the different jobs are listed on that website. So you can start applying for each job. Now, let's say you've got a job and you've started working. So let's talk about my journey. As I said, I started working from January 2019 in a NHS hospital. So I was working in the medicine department. I was just working as a junior doctor. So again, as a non-trainee. Now, during that period, I started preparing my portfolio for the residency. Okay, so as I've mentioned in the point here, there is no central exam like India. Okay, so we've got a NEET PG in India, and depending on what rank you get, you will be allocated to the specialty of your preference. In UK, it's different. We don't have any central exam. So we have a different application and different interview process for each specialty. So if you're planning to go into radiology, you have to go on the website and apply for radiology training. If you're planning to do medicine, you have to go on the medicine website, apply for medicine, and so on. Okay, so usually for most specialties, applications will start in November. So let's say if you're coming to UK and you're working in a hospital, the application for, let's say you want to do radiology, so the application will start in November. Okay, you apply online, they will do some eligibility checks. If you have passed that, they will start the interview process and everything later on in January and February. So all of that will take place in January and February. You will get the results by March or April, and your training, the residency itself, will start in August. Okay, so this is common for most specialties, although you have to apply separately, but the applications usually start in November. All right, only psychiatry and GP, they have two intakes. So they have one intake in February as well. So that's just a point to mention. Okay, but most of the specialties, they have only one round. So if you don't get into this round, you will have to apply again next year. So this is what happened with me. I was working I started my first job in January. I applied for my first application in November, and I got my result in March. I did not make it, so I had to continue working, and I applied again in November, and this time I got into it. Now, this is again very important, that even though I did not get into the residency program, so it's not really disappointing. I mean, it is disappointing, but not to that extent as in India. Okay, so I have known people who have got into first attempt after cracking NEET PG. Okay, I know personally one of my own seniors from my college, okay, from Nepal, who got a rank of 126, and he's also doing radiology in UCMS Delhi. All right, and I think he cracked it in his first attempt. So there are people who do it, but most people, obviously, they take at least 2 or 3 attempts before they get into a specialty of their choice and get a good rank. So what if you don't make it in UK? You know that you've got a good job. I carried on working in my job, okay, and I did not feel that disappointed with the result, okay, because I had a job in my hand. I was still working. I was saving enough money. All right, and I was still traveling. So I applied again, got into this time, and here I am. So let's talk about why. Let's talk about the main thing now for most people. And this is the most frequent question I've been asked, like, what is your salary from the first job? So I'm talking about my first job. Okay. So let's say, so on an average, your take home pay in a month will be about 2,500 pounds. Now, I started with 2,700 pounds because I was out of the pension scheme. So there is something called as the NHS pension scheme, and they deduct about 250 pounds every month. And once you retire, you will obviously be covered in that scheme. So it's like a pension scheme. But I have opted out of that pension scheme for my own personal reasons. Some of them, they are into it, some of them they opt out. Okay. Let's say if you are into the pension scheme, then your average take home pay every month will be about 2,500 pounds. Okay. This is roughly 2.5 lakh. Okay. Indian rupees, because at the moment, £1 is almost 100 rupees. All right. So if you're living outside London, okay, anywhere outside London, a rent for a good 1 bedroom hall kitchen apartment would be about 600. Currently I am paying 475 because I live in a small town. It's near to Manchester, but it's not a very costly place. All right, so I'm paying 475, but on an average, a rent for a good 1 bedroom hall kitchen would be about 600 pounds. If you're staying in London, it's really variable. If you're staying in London at a cost of 600 pounds, you will just get a room in a shared flat. Okay, so London is always going to be expensive. Any other city, you will easily get a 600 pound 1 BHK. Okay, all other utility bills and groceries will cost you about 400 pounds. Again, it will be 5 or 600 in London. All your miscellaneous expenses, traveling, exams, internet, mobile data, everything, about 200 pounds. And the last thing is leisure. It is highly variable. If you're someone like me who loves partying and going out and travel, it's about 300 pounds per month for me. It looks a small amount, but 300 pounds is 30,000 rupees in India. Okay, so I'm spending just on that on leisure. It can be more if I'm traveling to some different country. Okay, so still, if you calculate, so out of 2,500, if you calculate everything, you will still spend only 1,500 pounds. Okay, people who come here with families, they spend a little on leisure. They can cut down on their utility bills. They can get a different, they can get a flat for a less amount. Okay, and they save about 1,500 pounds as well. But if you're a person like me, even I will be saving about £1,000 a month. Okay, so I think I came in January and I got my first car in May. All right, I was able to buy a car. It was obviously a second-hand car. Most people in UK, they buy a second-hand car. Okay, but I was still able to buy it, and I think it cost me about £9,000, including insurance. Insurance is really high in UK. So just after 4 months into my first job, I bought my first car. Okay, and my parents visited me with my sister. We went on a tour to UK. I covered all the expenses, and I have been to Spain. I've been to France. I've been to lots of places. I could have been to more lots of places if it was not for COVID. Okay, so still I'm saving this money every month. Okay, so it looks good. As I said, if you don't get into a residency in your first attempt in UK, you know that you've got a job and you're still earning at least 2,500 pounds a month. Okay, one more thing to add over here. So this salary is only for working 48 hours a week on average. Okay, so the salary I mentioned, 2,500 pounds, is for working on an average 48 hours a week. You've got 8 days off in a week, in a month. Okay, you've still got 8 days off in a month. So if you do 2 extra shifts, okay, so 1 extra shift will get you about 500 pounds. So if you're doing a 12-hour shift on a Saturday, let's say, you will get at least 500 pounds for that shift. Okay, because we call them as locum. Any extra shift is called as a locum. So you will be paid at about 40 to 45 pounds per hour for that shift. So it's up to you how many hours you want to work. And there will be plenty of extra shifts available, mostly on the weekends. Okay, the salary will keep increasing as you progress to the next year. Okay, you will get your increment. It's not much, but still it's good enough. So as I said, this salary is for 48 hours a week. Anything on top of that will be paid extra. So let's say you're earning 2,500. If you do 2 extra shifts in a month, you will get 1,500 pounds. Okay, so 1,500 pounds will you're going to 3,500. Okay, so let's say you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you start doing extra shifts and you start earning more. That's how people in UK do it. Okay, so I know a lot of people say that the UK doctors are not paid well. Yes, it's true. Compared to most other countries, most developed countries, it's quite right. But if you talk about US, the salary of a resident in US is going to be the same, is going to be same as a salary of a resident in UK. I have a friend who's working in US and she earns about $3,300 a month. She's a PGY2 in medicine in US. Okay, she is working at least 70 or 80 hours a week. If I start working 70 hours a week, you can calculate the amount of money I will be making. Okay, maybe as much as a person with MD in India after 5 years of experience is earning. Okay, so it's still a lot, right? So moving on from the salary, let's talk about some drawbacks as well. Okay, I'm not here to just say that UK is all rosy and everything is good over here. There are some drawbacks as well. First drawback of working in any country outside India, you're away from your home, and this is something for which unfortunately there's no solution. Okay, because as I mentioned in the next point, you can only bring your wife or husband or even an unmarried partner, let's say maybe your fiance, and your kids as dependents, but not your parents. Okay, you cannot bring your parents on a dependent visa. Now, dependent visa is something that if you're on a dependent, let's say your wife or husband is on a dependent visa, they can stay in UK for as long as you are staying there. Okay, and in an unfortunate case where you die, where you pass away, your dependents will be covered by the UK government. They won't have to leave the country and they will be taken care by the UK government. Okay, this is a very good system. But you cannot bring your parents on a dependent visa. They can only come to UK on a visit visa. But the good thing is, let's say your parents have already visited UK once. So the first visa is always for 6 months, the visit visa. When you apply again next year, you can apply for 1 year. When you apply again, you apply again for 2 years, and then for 5 years, and then for 10 years. Okay, so I have friends who have been here for 4 or 5 years, and their parents have got a 10-year visa now, 10-year visit visa. So it's still an option if they want to come and live here with you. Now, to be honest, most parents, they don't like to come and settle here in UK, because if you see it, what are they going to do over here in UK? You will be working. Okay, you won't be staying at home with them all day, and there's no they won't be able to go out as much as they're going out in their home countries. Okay, they've got their own circle, they've got their own groups, they've got all the functions and everything which happens in India, and that will never happen in UK. Okay, it's a very different country. So no parents would really like to come and settle in UK. I'm just speaking from personal experience. But again, that's a drawback. Okay. Third drawback is the consultant salaries in UK are quite low compared to most other developed nations. Okay, even if I compare it with India. So so let's say a resident's salary is about £60,000 per annum, maybe more than that. I think it's 65. And a consultant's starting salary is about 77,000 pounds per annum. So it's quite low if you see it. He's almost earning the same as a registrar. A resident is called as a registrar in UK. All right. So, and the reason is because, as I mentioned in the starting, NHS is a government-run organization. So let's say if you are a consultant working in a government hospital, again, your salary is going to be really low, right? But if you start working in a private hospital, your salary will go higher. So that's what most consultants in UK, they do. They work for, they do some shifts in the NHS, and they also do some shifts in the private hospitals to supplement their income. Okay. But that's one drawback, that the salary is low compared to most developed nations. Okay. And the last drawback is that the residency is going to be longer than the most countries. Now, this is, as I will talk about this, okay, in the upcoming slides, but this is again another drawback. So the training process, the residency process, is one of the most complex in the world, okay, compared to any other country. So because there are, as I mentioned, each specialty has got a different interview process. That's why it's so difficult to understand. And you can join any specialty in between. So let's say, let's talk about pediatrics residency. Okay, so Pediatrics Residency is going to be 8 years long, ST1 to ST8. ST is specialty trainee. So when you are in residency, you will be called a specialty trainee. And the number 1 means you are in the first year. But if you have done 2 or 3 years somewhere else, okay, you can start from ST3. So you can start from the 3rd year. So as I said, it's very complex to understand that. And I cannot talk about this, I cannot talk about everything today. But let's cover some basics. So we have something called as core training versus run-through training. So let's talk about this. Okay, so you've got core training for medicine, surgery, and psychiatry. So let's say you want to do medicine training in UK. What happens? You start your first job as a non-trainee after coming via PLAB. And after that, you will have to apply for the core training application. That's your first step. So it is called as internal medicine training now. So internal medicine training is going to be 3 years. So you can say it's equivalent to MD in India. Okay, you've got 3 years of internal medicine training and you've got 3 years of MD in India. Now the difference will be once you have completed your internal medicine training, you cannot quit and start working on your own as a consultant, unlike India. So if you've completed your MD in India, you can quit there itself and you can start working as a general physician. It's not the same in UK. After completing your internal medicine training, you have to do specialty training. So specialty training is something equivalent to super specialty in India. So let's say you want to do cardiology. So again, after your IMT, the internal medicine training, you apply for cardiology training application. And that training is going to be 4 years. So if you see, if we compare it with India, 3 years of IMT and 4 years of the specialty training, cardiology, rheumatology, respiratory, anything, it's about 7 years. Compare it to India, you've got 3 years of MD and you've got 3 years of DM. So DM in cardiology, DM in hematology, or any specialty you want to go for. So it's still 6 years in India and it's 7 years in UK, plus 1 year of non-training job. Okay, so still it's not that bad if you compare it with our own country. You're still spending about 6 or 7 years, provided you crack NEET PG and NEET super specialty in your first attempt. Okay, we've not taken that into consideration. If you're going through and through, you complete it in 6 years. Similarly in UK, if you're going through and through, you do it in 7 years. So there's not much difference. So let's talk about surgery. So again, the surgery pathway is going to be the same. You've got core training. So after your non-training job, you apply for core surgical training. The difference from medicine will be that core training in surgery is for 2 years. It used to be 2 years for medicine as well. Now they've made it 3 years core training and 4 years of specialty training instead of 5 years specialty training. So the number of years remains the same, 7. So surgery, it's still 2 years of core training. And after 2 years of core training, you apply for specialty training, like you want to do vascular surgery, you want to do urology, neurosurgery. Okay, so you apply for specialty training in the branch of your choice. So it's going to be 5 years. So again, the number of years is going to be the same. It's about 2 plus 5, 7 years. Or maybe if it's neurosurgery, it will be higher. It will be 6 years. So it will be 8 years. Okay. The other specialty which has got core training is psychiatry. Psychiatry training is shorter. So you've got 3 years of core training and then you've got 3 years of specialty training. So 3 years of specialty. So now you must be wondering, if you've completed 3 years of core psychiatry training, what is going to be a super specialization in psychiatry? You still have super specialization in psychiatry. So you've got forensic psychiatry, you've got adult psychiatry, you've got child psychiatry. There are loads of different subspecialties within psychiatry. So when you complete your residency in UK, you will be a super specialist. Okay, so let's say you want to come back to India and you've completed your medicine surgery. That means you must have done some sort of super specialization. You must have done either cardiology, you must have either done hematology or respiratory. So once you come back to India, you will be practicing as a cardiologist, not as a general medicine specialist. So even if you spend 8 or 9 years in UK, once you come back to India, you will still be a reputed, qualified super specialist in a branch of your choice. Okay, so these 3 specialties, they've got core training. Now let's talk about the run-through training. Now, what happens in a run-through training is you've not got any core training. So let's talk about radiology. I'm going to start radiology in August. So I'm not going to have a break in between. Like after 3 years, I will have I'll have to give interviews again, and I'll have to appear for specialty training. Radiology is different. I've got 5 years. So radiology training is 5 years in UK, ST1 to ST5. The first 3 years are going to be general radiology. Okay, I'm going to learn all about everything. The first 3 years. After 3 years, in the last 2 years, it's up to me what I want to subspecialize in. As I mentioned, again, everything in UK is subspecialized. So by the time you become a consultant, you are a consultant in some subspecialty. So what can I be a subspecialist in a radiology field? I can be an interventional radiologist. I can be a breast radiologist. I can be an MSK radiology. So that will be my subspecialty. Okay. So that's how it works in run-through training. Similarly, for ophthalmology, there's a run-through training. You don't have core training. Similarly, for peds, I've already told you, peds is 8 years long, ST1 to ST8. Obsgyne, same, ST1 to ST8. And there are some surgical specialties as well, where you have run-through training. For example, let's say you want to do vascular surgery. So recently, they've started a program for a run-through program for vascular surgery, where you do not have to do core training. You can just apply once and you are into vascular surgery. That's it. Okay. EM is emergency medicine. Again, it's 7 to 8 years. And GP. So GP is the shortest residency program. Okay, a little bit of insight into the GP training program. So currently I am a GP trainee actually. Okay, so I did not get into radiology last year, but I got into GP because the exam for getting into it is the same. Okay, so I'm a GP trainee at the moment. So GP training is only 3 years long. All right. Now you must be wondering, GP, why would anyone want to go for a GP? But actually GP is becoming quite popular because after 3 years, you become a GP and the salary of a general practitioner is same, almost the same as a consultant. Okay. And most GPs, they only work 4 days a week. They've got 3 days off and they do not do any nights. Okay. And they do not do any weekends, right? So they only work 4 days a week and they get essentially the same money as a consultant. So it's become quite popular for many IMGs to get into GP training, and it's a really good option if you want to settle in UK. I could have carried on with GP, but because I just wanted to keep my options open of coming back to India. Now, obviously, if you've completed GP training, you cannot come back to India because as such, we do not have a GP system in India. So you will be still like a physician, general physician. Okay, so that's why I wanted to be in radiology, which gave me the flexibility of coming back to India. Because once I return to India, if I return to India, I will be a consultant radiologist in some subspecialty. Okay, so for someone looking to settle in UK, who wants relaxed working hours, who wants money, GP training is a good option. Okay, so again, just a summary of the different specialties and their duration of training. As I mentioned, general practice, the shortest, 3 years. Pathology is going to be 5 years. Radiology is about 5 to 6 years. So if you're doing interventional radiology, it's going to be 6 years. Anything else is 5 years. Public health is 5 years. Public health is just like community medicine in India, and surprisingly, public health is one of the most competitive specialties. I mean, you must be wondering who goes into community medicine, but public health in UK is a very lucrative career because you will be involved with NHS England, Public Health England, okay, and they are the people who are ruling all the healthcare organizations at the moment in UK. So it's very competitive. Psychiatry, 6 years, medical specialty, 7 years, all other specialties, 7 to 8 years. All right. So I've already compared all of, so as I mentioned, if you compare with a surgeon, a surgical specialty, let's say you do MS surgery in India, 3 years of MS surgery, and later on, if you want to do neurosurgery, cardio, CTVS, you spend another 3 years. Okay, so you're still spending 6 years in India as well. And in UK, you're spending maybe about 8 years. So it's not bad. At least you are in UK and you are earning, you're starting your pay at £2,500. Okay, so it's quite good. All right. So again, same 3 years MDMS and 3 years of DMMCH. Now, it's going to be different in radiology or dermatology. Obviously, there are some terminal specialties like radiology and dermatology and orthopedics as well, which are going to be 3 years and that's it, you're done. So yes, I can obviously that's going to be one advantage. So if you want to do radiology in India, it's just going to be 3 years and that's it, you're done. If you're coming to UK, it will be about at least 6 years. Okay, 1 year of your non-training job and 5 years of the training itself. But I will talk about this again. So getting into training, I've already mentioned each specialty has its own application and the interview process. And each specialty is going to look at different things for their marking scheme. Okay. So for example, most of them will ask you for some audit projects, publications and everything. And all of this can be done while working in UK. I did not have a single thing on my portfolio when I applied for my first job in UK. Okay, I had nothing. I had completed my internship. I had given my plabs. I was GMC registered. That's it. I had not done anything. I did everything after coming to UK. All right. And obviously, some specialties are more difficult to get into than others. So again, a frequently asked question: can I get into a surgical specialty? Can I get into this? So I'll talk about that. Some of the most competitive specialties. So most surgical specialties are going to be competitive. Okay. Now, radiology and surgical specialties are equally competitive. And I'm with you today. I've got into radiology in my second attempt. Still not bad. Okay. I still made it. So still not as competitive as India. Already mentioned that 1700 applicants and 400 seats. So at least 1 in 4 candidates got into radiology. Compare that with India, compare that with US. Okay, you need amazing USMLE scores if you want to get into surgical specialty or if you want to get into radiology. All right. For me, I don't think so. It would have been possible. I'm just an average student. I still managed to get in UK. All right. Public health medicine is another competitive specialty, and some medical specialties like dermatology. Again, for dermatology is equally competitive as radiology and any surgical specialty. So these are the more competitive specialties in UK. Compared to India, it's nothing. The less competitive specialties. Pediatrics, in the last survey, I think pediatrics was the least competitive specialty in UK. So posts were left vacant. So seats were going unfilled in pediatrics. They were going unfilled in psychiatry as well. Okay. Now psychiatry is usually not competitive anywhere, but still pediatrics has become even less competitive than psychiatry. Okay, so if you're planning for peds, UK is a really good option for you. And GP, it is getting competitive, but again, not as much as other specialties. The major drawback with GP being that you cannot return to your own country. There are some medical specialties like acute medicine, geriatrics. Geriatrics is basically older people. Okay, so these are some medical specialties which are less competitive. Emergency medicine, again, it's less competitive because of the working hours. You know how emergency is. So these are some specialties which are easy to get into. Okay, you will if you just apply, you will get into it. Okay, it's not going to be tough. So another frequent question I've been asked, comparing everything with the US. Okay, so I've summarized a few things over here. Now, as I've already talked about it, so if you're giving USMLE, you're getting straight into a residency. If you're giving PLAB, you're only getting a job. So USMLE is definitely more tougher than PLAB. PLAB is just a qualifying exam. It's like an eligibility exam. Like I had to give FMG for getting registered in Medical Council of India because I had graduated from Nepal. So you can consider PLAB like that. It's equivalent to FMG. It's like the FMG of UK. Okay, so it's not getting into your residency. It's only getting you a job. Okay, USMLE is getting into your residency because you don't really have junior doctor like roles in US. Once you're done with med school, you go into residency. That's it. There's no such thing as a junior doctor or a junior resident in US. There are some research work and all that which people do if they don't match in the first attempt. Okay, the residency in US is about 4 to 7 years depending on what you're doing. If you're doing medicine, you can complete everything in 6 years. Okay, so as I mentioned, one of my friends, she is doing internal medicine and she'll complete that in about 3 or 4 years. And after that, she's planning to apply for fellowship in cardiology, which will take another 2 years. Okay, so it's a total of 6 to 7 years. Almost about the same as UK. Okay, which is like if you're doing radiology, it's going to be 5 years, but it's going to be less in US and India. But if you're doing medicine, then it's going to be about the same as UK. There's no difference. Consultant salary, the biggest point of working in US, the consultant salary is going to be high. It's going to be very high, but but the salary of resident is going to be the same. As I've already mentioned, the resident in US earns about 33 or $3,400, and in UK you will be earning about £3,000. But you're working less hours. Okay, residents are working 70 or 80 hours in US. Over here in UK, they're working 48 hours. Okay, so if you start working as much as the US resident, you'll earn maybe twice as what they're earning. But the consultant salary is very high in US. So let's say you are a new medicine consultant, you've completed your medicine training, you will easily get like £200,000, $200,000 a year starting. Okay, compared to £80,000 in UK. Working hours for a consultant again is going to be more. They usually work for 60 hours a week. Consultant in UK maybe about 40 hours a week. All right. Now a lot of people say UK is very expensive. So if you've I've not been to US, but obviously my friends have been there. A few of my cousins have been there, and the living expenses, basically all the other expenses in US are similar to UK. Okay, neither one is less expensive. It's not like US is less expensive than UK. Even in US, you're going to pay a lot of taxes, and in fact, you're going to pay on. You will have to get a medical insurance as well in US. In UK, you don't have to worry about that. Healthcare is free; it's already deducted from your salary. So in US, you have to buy your own personal insurance, which is going to be sky high. All right. And one last point: UK is very much socially accepting than US. Okay, I'm not saying that UK is safe country, or as I said, I'm not going to say that UK is a very great country. They call it Great Britain, but it's not as great as people think. Okay, there are a few things which you'll realize once you're here, but what I've generally experienced is it is more socially accepting. Okay, it's not like it's safer than US. From what you might have realized this from the news as well. Okay, US is not that safe, and people talk about racism in UK. I haven't personally experienced racism. Okay, it exists. It definitely exists, but I think it's less than India. At least it's very subtle. It's not like out front on your face. Okay, they're not going to start shouting you're a brown person and on your face. It doesn't happen like that. It's all very subtle. So the racism will exist, but again, it's not anything. It's nothing compared to US, or it's nothing compared to even India. Okay, so it's quite more socially accepting. So these are a few this is a summary of few points comparing everything in UK to US. Okay, so obviously if you're looking for something like you just want to complete your residency sooner and start earning a big amount of money, US is good for you, but getting into US is not going to be easy. Okay, you have to get really good MLE scores. You need to work on your electives, on your CV, and you're not guaranteed what specialty you will get after that, after completing all of that. Okay, let's compare it with India. I've already mentioned a few points here and there, but just to summarize again. So as I've said, people, what they do is they work and they prepare for exams in UK, because as such, all the exams in UK, they are more like eligibility exams, more like qualifying exams. You just need to pass them. There is no competition. Okay, you just need to make sure you're passing this exam, and that's it. So unlike in India, so let's say you're preparing for NEET PG. Now, I was in Delhi for about 8 months, and obviously I was living in Gautam Nagar, the hub of all the MBBS people who are preparing for NEET PG. So my friends from my college, obviously they were there as well. So I was just living with them because I gave my PLAB and IELTS everything in Delhi. So I don't think so anyone among them was working in a hospital. Their sole purpose was to clear NEET PG, and they were studying 12 to 14 hours a day. That doesn't happen in UK. Okay, you're working in UK, you're working 48 hours a week, and side by side you're preparing for exams, because there's no competition. You just need to pass that exam. Okay, so and obviously some residencies are shorter in India, like radiology or dermatology, because they are terminal residencies. 3 years of radiology, 3 years of dermatology, 3 years of MS orthopedics, and you're done. Okay, now let's this point I want. So whenever someone asks me to compare India and UK, and they say that obviously like you complete your radiology in 3 years and that's it, you're done, and compared to UK where you'll have to spend 5-6 years. So let's say you've completed your radiology training in India, you've done MD radiology. How many people who complete MD radiology are actually going to start working independently immediately? So let's say you are a graduate, you've completed MD radiology. Do you think you can go ahead and start your own radiology lab straight away? It's not going to happen like that for most people. Okay, obviously if you've got your own if your parents are running a hospital or their own labs, yes, that is possible for you. But for most people, for an average Indian graduate, you cannot straight away start doing something on your own, not just radiology, even as an MD physician. So one of my batchmates from school, he has completed radiology. Okay, he just finished his radiology this year from Surat in Gujarat, and what he's doing now. He's just carrying on working in the same hospital as a senior resident, as an SR. Okay, so it takes a lot of confidence to actually start working on your own after completing training in such a short period of time. Okay, if you're doing medicine or surgery, most of you will be going ahead and do a DM or MCH program. Okay, so you'll be sitting for an exam again, and then you'll do a DM MCH program, and then maybe you'll start thinking of working independently. But if you compare it with UK, because you've been through such a lengthy training process, you become quite confident of making your own decisions and starting your own work. Okay, because if you're spending 7 years in medicine or 7 years in radiology, obviously the amount of experience you're going to get is going to be the same as a person who's completed residency in India and has worked for 4 or 5 years after that. Okay, so essentially it doesn't matter how many years you're taking, because as doctors, in reality, if a patient is coming to see you, they won't trust you unless they see those white hairs on your head. Okay, they will trust a person with more white hairs on their head than a young graduate. That's going to be the reality. So it doesn't matter how many years you're taking. Okay, and the last point, obviously, less exams in India. If you're just giving NEET PG and boom, you are into the residency. You give one exam at the end of your MD or MS, and that's it. In UK, it's a bit different. You're giving PLAB. You start your job, then you have to appear for MRCP, MRCS, depending on what specialty you are in. If you're in radiology, you give FRCR. So there are different exams. So the exams will be more. But again, as I mentioned, they are only to pass. You don't need to score high on these exams. Okay, even if you pass by 1 mark, that's it. No one cares. Okay. Now, again, a few frequently asked questions. Some of the main dilemmas which even you might be having today. Okay. First point, uncertainty about clearing the exams or getting into residency. And my answer is always that uncertainty will remain in any country. If you're planning for NEET PG, you can't be certain that you're going to crack it. If you're planning for USMLE, you can't be certain of getting a good score and getting matched. If you're coming to UK, no, you can't be certain of anything. Okay, so that uncertainty will remain in any country. You can't be certain about any country. No country is easy to getting into a training program. Okay, the second dilemma is deciding between US, UK, India, etc. So I've given you a few points and I've compared everything, but it comes down to your own personal choice. Okay, some people, they've got families in US, so they go to US. Some people, they've got family in UK, they come to UK. Most Indian graduates, okay, and this is a reality, most Indian graduates will stay back in India. So if I talk about my batch, now obviously my batch, I was in Nepal, but we still had like 50 Indian people in my batch. Okay, and out of 50, I know 1, 2, 3, only 3 people moved abroad. Okay, 1 to US, 2 to UK. Rest, all my other people or colleagues, they stayed back in India. And if you look at your previous batches in your college, you'll realize that most people, they stay back in India rather than going to US or UK. That number is very small, and I think the biggest factor is obviously staying back with your family. Okay, and that is something which cannot be argued against. So this is a personal choice. You need to make that decision. Okay, can you come back? Yes, you can come back. For people who say that no one comes back after going there, it's wrong. I have seen several people coming back. So my college dean, okay, in Nepal, he was an Indian. He had completed MD dermatology from AIMS. He was a dermatology resident in UK. He quit that and came back to India and then to Nepal. He's working in Nepal at the moment. It was all because of family reasons. So you never know what's going to happen in life. So people do come back, okay? And it's not like life is going to be bad once you come back, because you're returning from a developed nation. So it's that thing is always going to stay. And the last dilemma is obviously people might be arguing and people send messages that it's going to take 7 or 8 years in UK. I've already mentioned all the points. It doesn't matter if it takes 7 years, it takes 8 years, it takes 9 years. It doesn't matter. Okay. In 6 years, you will have a British passport in your hand. In 8 years, you will be a consultant in some subspecialty. You've got two good things. Okay. If you want to come back after that, then it's going to be all good. All right. As I mentioned, if you're completing residency in short time from India, can you think of starting work independently? And what about the starting salary? Even if you talk about the salary, what's going to be the starting salary for a new MD or MS person? Maybe about 3 lakhs a month or 4 lakhs a month maximum. Well, that salary you are earning as a junior doctor in UK. Okay, so it's not that bad. And but again, I'll leave it up to you. You need to decide. So just a short mention of this thing, because a few people have asked me. I don't know if any one of the attendees today are doing their PG in KMC, but still I'll mention this. So if you want to come to UK after completing your PG, okay, point number one, the Indian PG is not valid in UK, okay? You can get a few points when you apply for any specialty program. So let's say you're applying for a dermatology training application. You will get 3 or 4 points on your application if you have completed your MD dermatology. Okay, but it's not valid. You cannot replace it with the dermatology training. So even if you have completed your PG, you still need to come back to UK and do it again. So let's say I've got 3 scenarios here. Okay, so the first scenario is you have passed all the steps of your MRCP or MRCS. Now, it doesn't matter if you've passed all steps of MRCP or MRCS with your PG. If there is someone who hasn't done PG and has still passed these exams, okay? So let's say I am someone who has given NEET PG 3 times, but I still haven't managed to get into a PG program in India. But during these 3 years, I've passed all the steps of MRCP. What can I do? So I will still be equivalent to a person who has done PG and passed his MRCP exam. So I can skip the core training, which I've mentioned in my previous slide, and straight away I can apply for a specialty training application if I have passed all these exams, all the steps. So you've got 3 steps of MRCP. Okay, if you have completed all those steps, you can skip the core training and you can apply straight away to a specialty training program. Okay, you can skip core training. That's the only advantage you have of clearing all these exams. But if you have completed PG and you have not done these exams, okay, then you have to start from the scratch. Okay, as I said, your PG is not going to be valid. All right. And the last scenario is there are some people who have, let's say, they've got 10 years of experience after completing their PG, and for some reason after 10 years they decided they don't want to stay in India and they want to move abroad. So I have seen such people in UK. What they do is, because obviously they've already spent 10 years, they may be in their 40s and they don't want to do that training again. So what they do is they come to UK, they have cleared their MRCP, MRCS, they start working as a non-trainee resident. Okay, so they will be at the level of a specialty trainee, but as a non-training, they won't be in a training. That means their salary will be high, but they are not actually in a formal training program. But they will work for 3 or 4 years, and during those 3 or 4 years, if the consultants they are working under feel that this person has got enough knowledge and skills to become a consultant, they will sign them off. They've got a form for that, and they will sign them off saying that this person is capable and this person can become a consultant. Now that route is not easy. Okay, it takes a lot of things into account. So once you start working here, there are lots of paperwork and everything, but it will still take at least 3 or 4 years if you want to pursue that route. All right, it's not going to be easy because you need at least 2 or 3 consultants to say that you can become a consultant, and it's not going to be easy. It's not like India, like anyone can sign you off for anything. The system is different. So these are the few steps you can take if you've completed your PG. Okay, but again, the summary is that Indian PG is not accepted by UK. Right. So let's say you've, so just a little mention about this as well. At the moment, if you are an intern, okay, or even in your final year, and you've already planned for applying to jobs in UK, there are a few things you can start working on. Okay. So as I mentioned, I had nothing on my portfolio when I applied for my first job in UK, but that was 2018. We are in 2021 now, and everyone knows that UK is easy to get into. And because of that, over the last 3 years, the number of people applying to UK has gone up. Okay, more than by more than 50%. It's difficult to find PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 dates these days. Everyone is applying, and because of COVID, things have got worse. Okay, there's a lot of backlog. But so So you need a few things on your portfolio, because what will happen is when you go to the NHS jobs website, okay, so I had made a little video about this, but I'll just go on I'll just show you the NHS jobs website as well. So this is the website where you're going to apply for all your jobs, okay? The first job, basically, when you go to medical and dental, okay? So let's say you start, so your level will be at the F2 level. So F1 in UK means an intern. F2 is someone above F1. So you will be applying at F2 level because you've only completed your internship now. Okay, so you'll find all the different jobs over here. Okay, and they will mention which city is it going to be. So London is going to be. So let me find this this job. So this is a trust SHO. And don't be worried that there are only a few jobs over here, okay? Because there are different terms. So let me go back. I'm not trying to scare you here. So you can apply for, so this was my title when I joined, Junior Clinical Fellow. These days they call all the SHOs as Junior Clinical Fellow, okay? So you'll see loads of different jobs here. You've got more pages here. So let's say you're applying for a Junior Clinical Fellow job and you want to apply for, let's say, pediatrics. Oh, actually, this is my town. This is where I'm working. Okay. This is an advertisement from my own hospital. Okay. And this is for the post of pediatrics. So it's already mentioned here. They want 2 posts. They want 2 junior clinical fellows. Okay. For 12 months. So 40 hours per week. And on top of that, you will be working about nights and weekends. So that will be paid extra. All right, this is going to be the town where I'm currently living. This is your basic salary. I've already broken it down for you, so don't worry about that. Now, whenever you open a job, there will be something called as person specification. Okay, so when you apply for this job, they will ask you for what you have done. Okay, you have to fill out a form, and they will match all of that with something called the person specification. So let me find the person specific. This is the person specification. Okay. So this is what they will be looking for in your application. And depending on what you have and how many points you score from this, they will call you for interview. So about 5 or 6 people will be called for interview out of maybe 20 or 30 applications. So essential means you definitely need to have that on your CV. So you will have full registration. You will have the PLAB exam. Okay. You have got full registration. That means you've given the PLAB exam. Now, desirable means anything on top of this. Desirable doesn't mean essential, okay? It's only if you have it, it's fine. Okay, so what is NLS? NLS is something called neonates life support. And if you're planning for pediatrics, you will be giving this exam, MRCP-CH. It's like MRCP for medicine. So if you have given any steps, okay, you can use it in this post. So it will give you extra points, okay? Practical experience, clerking patients in acute setting, you can obviously show that you have done this during your internship. Understanding of the audit, they are not actually asking you to do an audit project, they just want you to understand it. Okay, completed audits is desirable. So if you have done audits, it will be beneficial. Rest all the other things, ability to communicate and liaise, ability to supervise, this all will be tested during the interview. Okay, they will give you scenarios, they will ask you questions, they will see how your communication skills are. So person specification is going to be mentioned in all the different jobs which have been advertised. Okay, so whenever you're preparing your CV, just go to this website, find out what different jobs want from you. Okay, so I've just summarized that again here in this slide. So the most important thing is going to be a clinical attachment. So when you come to UK for your PLAB 2 exam, all right, you can apply for a clinical attachment to any hospital. Okay, let's say you have attended your coaching in Manchester, or maybe let's say you want to work in Manchester. So there are 3 or 4 different hospitals. Just email the medical staffing department of each hospital that you want to do a clinical attachment. For most of the hospitals, it's going to be free. Okay, so there are some hospitals who charge you for that, so avoid them. Okay, most hospitals provide clinical attachment for free. What is a clinical attachment? So let's say I am a person who is going to start a clinical attachment in a hospital. So my job is to just follow or shadow the junior doctors and consultants on the round. Okay, on the ward. So whatever, so for example, they are doing a ward round. So I'll just join them, observe what's happening. I'll just observe the system. I'll just get a taste of the NHS system. That's all I'm doing. I'm not touching the patients. I'm not doing any skills or anything else. I'm just observing. Okay. Usually most people do it for 2 weeks. Why is it important? This is important because you get to know the consultants, you get to know the team. So let's say you've done a clinical attachment in a Manchester hospital. What will happen is if the consultant sees that if he is impressed by you, you're keen to learn, and you are showing some skills, okay, like communication skills, they will be impressed by you, and they can ask their medical staffing department that I like this person, can we please arrange an interview? Okay, so even though if there is a job is not advertised on this website, there are many jobs internally as well. Okay, and all of this can be arranged by a consultant. So if they are impressed by you from the clinical attachment, they can offer you a job. Let's say they don't have any vacancies, so you can still go to the NHS jobs website, and you can use that clinical attachment in the CV. Okay, you can say that you have seen the NHS system, and that is going to help. So if you have this one thing over here, the clinical attachment, you won't need to worry about all of this. So most people these days, when they come to UK for PLAB 2, they also do a clinical attachment. Okay, it's just 15 days. All right, the other things, as we've already seen in that job advertisement, audit projects, if you got a publication, that's good. Now, membership exams, we have seen in the job advertisement, again, they asked for MRCP-CH, it was desirable. So if you've got it, you will get extra points. It's also important during these times because if you're planning to come to UK and you will be struggling for a date for at least the next year, okay, because of COVID. So you've got time, you can start preparing for the specialty, the membership exam of your preferred specialty. Let's say you want to do medicine later on. So you can start preparing for MRCP Part 1, okay, and get it done with. You can give it any time after your final year, okay, after your internship. And organizing teaching session, if you ever attended any extra courses, or if you've got any previous work experience. So all of this can be used, okay? But again, to summarize, the clinical attachment, this is going to be the most important thing, okay? So I've covered most of the things, I guess, and let me just come back on the screen. Wait, so how do I get back? Okay. Don't use it much. Okay, am I back on the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So yeah, that was a small presentation, but obviously a lengthy one. But as you must have understood by now, it's a very complex process. So I've tried to summarize it in a short way. Okay, I cannot talk about all the different specialties today because, as I said, each specialty has got its own different application process, and you need separate things. But still, I know you will have a lot of dilemmas. I've covered a few of them, but I've just kept this last part for an open discussion if anyone wants to have any conversation. So we can have a word about that, and maybe I can shed some light on it. So even Muskaan, if you want to go ahead and ask some of your own personal questions about your own journey and how I can help. So Afzal, I can see Afzal's hand is up. Go ahead, Afzal.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So actually, I am a second year MBBS student in UCMS,
Yeah.
and if I am planning to do the PLAB thing, so what should be my ideal timeline? Like, I know that for the USMLE, I'm trying to acquire some knowledge. I wanted to ask this: when should I take my PLAB 1 and the IELTS exam ideally?
Yeah. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, your goal, if you're planning to come to UK, your goal should be to appear for PLAB 1 and IELTS or OET during your internship. Okay, so if you're what you can do is you just make sure you complete your IELTS or OET and your PLAB 1 before your internship ends. Okay, and once you're done with your internship, you will become eligible for PLAB 2 if you've already passed these two exams. Now, why? I know some, I can understand, we are Indians and we all like rushing into things. We just want to. So if I talk about myself, yes, even I started thinking about going to US and UK from my second or third year. So the thing is, with UK, you can't really start preparing for PLAB 1 and when you are in second year, because the format of PLAB 1 exam is they're only going to test clinical subjects. Okay, so they will only test medicine, surgery, obs-gynae, pediatrics, ENT, ophthalmology. They're not going to test physiology, pharmacology, or anatomy. So there's no point preparing for PLAB 1 at this point. Okay, and IELTS or OET will take you like hardly 1 or 2 months to prepare. It's just an English exam. Okay, so the best time is during your internship. Just make sure you complete your final year. Okay, final year exams are going to be tough, maybe more tough than the PLAB exam itself. Okay, so don't worry about that if you are in second year. All right. Right. So we've got Deval Pandit.
Yeah, hi sir.
Hi.
Sir, I'm a third year undergraduate in KMC Mangalore. I had a doubt regarding the Brexit that happened in 2021 January. Now UK is not a part of European Union anymore. So how does it affect the life of any international medical graduate in UK?
Okay, so if anything, I think it's going to be more beneficial for us. Okay, so previously what used to happen was the people coming from the doctors graduating from European Union, they were given a bit of more preference. Okay, when applying for different training programs or for jobs, because they did not need a visa for coming to UK. It was a free movement between UK and the EU. But now they are on the same level as us. Okay, they need a visa and they have to apply through our different pathways. So we are on the same level now. So it's going to be more beneficial for us actually, and the competition is going to be less because everyone is on the same level now. So you don't need to worry about the Brexit.
Okay, but sir, now since UK won't be a part of the union anymore, so once you have done all your core training and everything, your residency in UK, you can't practice as a consultant in the other countries in Europe, right?
Well, from what I am aware, you could not practice as a consultant even before, because most European countries, the main language, the main problem is the language barrier. So let's talk about Germany. You can't go and practice in Germany without knowing German. If you know German, well and good, you can start practicing as a consultant. But if you don't have the knowledge of the language of that country, you can't really practice as a consultant. So the main problem is the language barrier.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. We've got Manasvi.
Yes, hello, sir.
Hi.
I'm a fourth year undergraduate student in KMC Mangalore, and I just wanted to know that if I'll be able to NEET PG as well. So what if I get into NEET PG and I complete my PG in whichever field? So after that, if I give MRCP and MRCS, can I skip the core training and just do the specialty training? Like, will I get straight into the specialty training and then reduce the the number of years that I have to do residency there?
So the thing is, I've already mentioned that Indian PG is not going to. So let's say you get into a MD or MS program after you need PG. Now, for someone who's not getting into that MD or MS program, and still they have completed their MRCP, even they can skip the core training. Okay, it's regardless of whether you've done your PG in India or not. If you have cleared your MRCP steps, you can skip the core training and you can start for specialty training right away. Okay, getting into a PG program is not going to give you any additional benefit as such. The only benefit you might have is that when you apply for the training program, okay, you might get a few points for completing a PG program in India. So that's the only advantage you'll have. You can skip if you have not, and if you have done your PG but you have not completed the MRCP steps, you cannot skip the core training. So the criteria to skip core training is to complete all the steps of MRCP. So that's like an eligibility criteria for applying into specialty training. Okay, you cannot apply for specialty training if you have not completed MRCP. So let's say there are people who are doing medicine training in UK, but they have not managed to pass all the MRCP steps. So unless they pass MRCP steps, they cannot progress to specialty training. So it's more like a qualifying or eligibility exam rather than anything else. Okay. Sorry, Muskaan, are you saying something?
Uh,
So, can you please throw some light on the MRSA exam?
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so so let's go back to one of my slides. Okay, okay, I'll just mention about that. So, MSRA exam. So let's say there are some specialties. Okay, I'll name the specialties. You've got radiology, you've got ophthalmology, you've got obsgyne, you've got pediatrics, you have got psychiatry. So most other specialties other than medicine and surgery, when you apply for their training program, okay, so most of the specialties except medicine and surgery, to get into that specialty, you have to appear for an exam called the MSRA. So let's say, as I said, the applications will start in November. So let's say I'm applying for this particular specialty which uses this exam, MSRA. So I'm talking about radiology, pediatrics, obsgyne, ophthalmology, etc., etc. So I'll apply in November. I'll fill an application in November. They will do eligibility checks and everything. And in December, they will send me an invite to book this exam called MSRA. Now, MSRA is an exam which is quite similar to PLAB 1. Okay. The only addition in that exam is you've got something called the situational judgmental test. So you've got two parts in that exam. One is going to be the clinical problem solving skills, which is similar to PLAB 1. And the second one is a SJT, situational judgmental test, where you are given scenarios. It's more like a medical ethics questions. Okay, so you will be asked to book this exam, and you will be given. I think it's held over 10 days. Okay, and you need to select your date and time accordingly. And usually it's held in January. So the first step of applying to this training program, let's say radiology, is going to to give this exam. Now, what happens is as I mentioned, every specialty is going to be different. So if I talk about radiology, I had to give this exam in January. Now, out of the 1,700 applicants who have given this exam, so 1,700 was the total number of people who applied for radiology. And out of those 1,700, they will call the top 550 people from this exam to the interview. Okay. So it's going to be similar with other specialties who are using this exam. Okay, so let's say 2,000 people applied for obs and gynae application. So out of those 2,000, they will call the top 600 people from this exam to the interview. So this exam is like a cutoff. Okay, they're using a cutoff score to bring you to the interview. So they're not going to interview all the 2,000 candidates. What they are doing is they're reducing their own work. They're just using this exam. They have set a cutoff score that they're only going to call the top 600 or top 700 depending on the number of posts. Okay, so it's like a qualifying exam again. And this is the only exam which is going to be competitive because you need to be in the top 500. So if there were 1,700 applicants in radiology, only top 550 people were called to the interview, and out of those 550, they gave the posts to about 400 people. Okay, so some specialties, not some, actually many more specialties are using this exam day by day. Okay, except medicine and surgery, most other specialties are using this exam. So first step, fill the application in November, give this exam in January, go for the interviews in February, and you'll get your results in March. So this is the pathway for applying to such specialties, okay, except medicine and surgery. So Muskaan, I hope that helps.
Yes, sir. So, like online on the NHS website for pediatrics, it said that 1 year work experience is needed to give MRSA. Is that required for like all specialities, or is that only specific to pediatrics?
No, so it is required for all the specialties. It's going to be common, okay? Because MSRA is a common exam. So when you go to the person specification, they will say that you need to have worked for a year before you apply to this exam. The thing is, let's say you're going to complete that 1 year in August, right before you start your training. So you can still give this exam, okay? They won't stop you. All they want is you must have completed your 1 year before you start your training. So if you've completed 6 or 7 months and you're giving this exam, but you expect to complete 1 year before you start your training, you can still give this exam, okay? Even though you've not actually completed 1 year at the time you're giving this exam, all right?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Right, Abhay Tyagi.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, sir. I have a doubt that is mainly looking forward to the medicine and surgery. So we have done 1 year internship in here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then we have two options, right? Then we can give plab and go for F2. And second option is we do 1 year. We do like we get more work experience of 1 year in India, and then straight away applying for uh, MSRA and then getting the medicine or surgery. Is it possible? Second option.
So again, MSRA is, as I said, MSRA is not for surgery or medicine, okay? So if you're planning for medicine, the first step would be your internal medicine training application, okay? So you need to do 3 years of internal medicine training. It is possible, let's say you've got your GMC registration in October and you want to come and work in UK straight away without doing a non-training job as a internal medicine training, okay? So you apply for IMT training in November. You give your so there's going to be no MSRA exam for IMT, internal medicine training, okay? So you'll have to apply in November and you'll give your interviews. So interviews I think are held in Jan and Feb, and you'll have to, obviously during your interview you will have to provide your portfolio, whatever you have done, and the training will start in August. So this is one possibility if you want to come straight away after passing your PLABs, okay? It's not recommended because you will be working in an NHS hospital as a trainee, and as a trainee the expectations from your consultant are going to be higher, okay? You do not know the system. So when you come here as a non-trainee for your first job, okay, so they will give you a 1 month of shadowing period, okay? So when I joined my hospital as a non-trainee, for the first month, I was only observing everyone what they are doing. I was not involved in any kind of formal work. But as a trainee, if you're joining NHS as a trainee, you will be asked to work straight away. And you might struggle initially with understanding the system, okay? And again, MSRA is not for medicine. So your only option is either you start at the level of F2 as a non-trainee, or you come here as a trainee and you start working as an internal medicine trainee. Does that help your question?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Hatim Hussain. Is it Hatim?
Good evening, sir. Hello.
Hi.
Sir, I wanted to ask you about the visa process. How much time does it take, and when is the good time? Like after the PLAB 2, after you book a date for your PLAB 2, then so like how soon do you start applying for your visa, and how much time does it take?
So the thing is, so let's say, because as I said, COVID has created a lot of backlogs and the dates are getting pushed further away. But ideally, so if I talk about ideal times, okay, let's talk about myself. So I got my result for PLAB 1 in April, and immediately on the day of getting your result, okay, so I had my credit card in my hand. I opened the PLAB 1 website. I saw pass. I straight away went into my GMC account. I mean, I was into my GMC account to see the result. I straight away went to booking exam and I booked my PLAB 2, the earliest date I had for PLAB 2. I mean, I had already kept in mind that I want to give a PLAB 2 in July. Okay. So I just went through the dates. I booked my exam for July. So on the day of result of PLAB 1, I booked my PLAB 2 exam. Okay. The next available date. So this is what you're going to do. First thing, look at your result. If you're passed, straight away go to the PLAB 2 available dates and book your PLAB 2 date. Now, once you've booked your PLAB 2 date, so I got my result in April and my PLAB 2 was in July. So I applied for visa the next day itself. Okay, because you can apply for visa within 6 months of your intended date of traveling to UK. It doesn't matter if you apply even 4 months before or 5 months before. The visa is going to start from the day you have asked for. Okay, so ideally just get it sorted. Now these days, because of COVID, what's happened is you will get your PLAB 1 result, but you won't be able to immediately book your PLAB 2 exam. They're releasing it in slots. Okay, so let's say they've got 1,000 candidates who have passed PLAB 1. So they will give a date, and they will create a portal, and this portal will only be accessed by the people who have passed their PLAB 1. Or let's say pass their PLAB 1 before March. Okay, for people who pass their PLAB 1 after March, they will create a new portal and they will be in the next round of booking the PLAB 2. So you cannot immediately book it. So it's going to be different this year. Okay, but your main focus should be to book the first date as soon as possible. So if you've not booked your IELTS or OET, that's your first step. If you're planning for UK, go back today, book your IELTS or OET, because even IELTS and OET is getting cancelled and postponed. Okay, so start everything from today and just take it stepwise. Okay.
And sir, one more question.
Yeah.
So when can we start applying for a non-training job? Like after you've passed your PLAB 1, PLAB 2. So when does the application process open for a non-training job? For a junior clinical fellow?
For a non-training job can be applied throughout the year. Okay, as soon as you get your GMC registration, go to the NHS jobs website and start applying for 100, 200 jobs, whatever number of jobs are there on the site. Okay, there is no specific window for a non-training job. They can be applied throughout the year. Okay, that's the advantage of a non-training job. You don't have to wait. As soon as you get a GMC registration, start applying.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Matthew, Anthony. Actually, Manasvi is. Yeah, go ahead, Mansi.
Good. Hello, sir. Hello.
I'll go after Matthew, sir. Let him ask.
All right, Matthew, go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Hi.
My name is Matthew. I'm in the final year of from Kasturba Medical College.
Yeah.
So with GMC announcing that they're changing the PLAB exam to UK MLA exam in 2024, and with UK medical students also now being applicable to write the exam, would it make it difficult for us as IMGs to now get into the residency?
So yeah, so UK MLA will be introduced in 2024. Okay, so you are in final year, so I think you will most likely be going for PLAB. Now, I've read the UK MLA pattern on the GMC website. So it's again, I'll just mention briefly. It says that you will have 2 exams. The first exam is going to be applied knowledge test, which is a theory exam. And the second exam is going to be a practical test. This is the pattern of UK MLA. So if you compare it with PLAB, I don't see any differences. You still have got your PLAB 1 as a theory exam, and PLAB 2 is going to be a practical exam. So they've just changed the name of this exam. I think maybe they're just bored of the PLAB exam. Has been there for a while, so they just want to change it to something fancy. So they've made it UK MLA, but the exam pattern itself is going to be the same, and I don't see any difference. Okay, so there's nothing to worry about this change of exam names. Okay, it's still going to be the same.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah, Mansi, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So after, I just had a question about MRCP again. So if we give MRCP or MRCS without giving need PG or having a PG degree, so do we have to apply for non-trainee jobs after giving MRCP, or can we straight away enter into specialty training in the UK?
Sorry, I think your voice was breaking. Can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Yeah. After giving MRCP and after clearing MRCP, do we enter straight into the specialty training, or do we have to apply for a non-trainee job and then apply for a special training job, residency job in the UK?
Okay, so again, this is something similar to coming straight into a training program from India. So yes, if you have completed your MRCP, you can apply straight away for the ST3, ST4 training program. Okay, it's not ideal. Okay, it's even worse than applying as an internal medicine trainee, because you're applying as an ST3. ST3 is called a registrar. So registrar is someone who works just below the consultant. So you can imagine, so basically a medical registrar is someone who's running the whole hospital. Okay, he's covering all the medical wards. Any serious patient, he will be called to see the patient. So he's basically the consultant, okay, on call. He's just below the consultant in hierarchy, but he's basically running the whole hospital. So you will be asked to manage every sick patient. So it's not going to be an easy job starting straight away as a trainee registrar. Ideally, what you can do is apply for, just get your GMC registration on the basis of your MRCP and get a job as a non-trainee registrar. You will be called as SAS doctor. Okay, there's a different term for such people, and work for about 6 or 7 months as a non-trainee registrar and then apply for the specialty training, only because you'll get to understand the NHS system. Okay, and it will help you later on in your training program. You will be paid higher than a recent graduate. So your salary is going to be the same as a training registrar. Okay, in fact, it's going to be actually higher than that. So the salary for a non-trainee registrar is almost similar to a consultant. You'll be getting around £4,000 a month. Okay, so ideally, if you're planning on that route, come here as a non-trainee registrar and then apply for your training program. So my advice to anyone who wants to come and do training in UK is to just do at least 6 months of a non-training job just to get to know the system. That's it. Don't apply for a training program straight away. You might struggle with that. Okay, some hospitals, they are not that supportive. My hospital has been really supportive. So I have seen trainees who have come directly into training program without doing a non-training job, and they have struggled, but because the consultants were nice, they were okay and they just signed them off for everything. But don't do that. All right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right. So got Chandana.
Hello, doctor.
Hello.
Oh, actually, there's Umang, Chandana, and so.
I'll go after him if that's fine.
Oh yeah, Umang, go ahead.
So my question is very simple. So what is the duration of exam for PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 respectively?
Sorry? Duration of
exam for PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 respectively.
So you mean like the duration of each exam?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I think a PLAB 1 is 180 minutes if I'm not wrong. And PLAB 2, you have got 18 stations. So what happens is, so PLAB 1 is obviously a theory exam. So as I said, it's about 180. So you've got 180 questions. It used to be 200 questions during my time. Now they've reduced it to 180 questions. So PLAB 1 is basic. So your exam is not difficult, okay? But you are on your toes. You just have to see the question and answer in like 30 seconds. Okay, you get like 30 or 40 seconds for one question. So you just have to be really quick. Either you know the question or you don't know the question. PLAB 2 is like you've got 18 different stations and they have got model actors who are acting like patients. Okay, so when you go into a cubicle, you will have an examiner who's just sitting on the side. He's not going to ask you anything. He's just marking you. And then you've got your model actor who's acting as a patient. So each station is about I think 8 minutes, 8 or 10 minutes. I'm not sure at the moment because again they have changed it, but it's about 8 to 10 minutes each station, and it's the time starts as soon as you enter the station. Okay, and you've got 18 stations. You've got 2 rest stations in between, and you've got total of 18 stations. All right.
And sir, is there any negative marking in PLAB 1 exam?
No, there's not.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, Chandana, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, doctor. I'm Chandana. I'm doing my second year UG here in FMMC Mangalore. Thing is, I've been looking at the PLAB pathway and Journey UK and everything, and I found this thing called the CREST form, and they're saying that you need to get that signed in order to apply for residency. Would you talk a little bit about that form?
Yeah. So. If you're so CREST form is something, so again it's something like an eligibility form. Okay, so when you're working as a non-trainee here, so let's talk about myself. So I started working here in NHS as a non-trainee at the level of F2 because I've only done my internship, and I applied for radiology training. To apply for any training program, you need to get something signed which is called as the CREST form. Now what is a CREST form? It's just basically there are tick boxes in that whole form saying that you can see patients, you can clock, you can take history, you can sign, you got skills to sign the DNAR form. So it is something you can get signed by a consultant under whom you have been working for at least 3.5 months. Now it can be signed by a consultant back home as well. Okay, you can get it signed from an Indian consultant as well if you have worked with them for 3.5 months. It's not necessarily that you need to get it signed by a UK consultant. Okay, This is CREST form. Now let's say if we talk about someone who's going to start specialty training, so you will have to get a different form signed. Okay, you will have to get a form which is called as the core competency. Core competencies. So it's basically like core competency means you someone is ready to tick box you for. He's able to say that you are equivalent to a core trainee in UK, and CREST form is for someone that the consultant wants to say that you're equivalent to a F2 in UK. Okay. Now, because what happens is, let's say there's a British medical student. So what's the path for a British medical student? Once he completes the medical college, he or she will go into F1 and F2 training. So for them, internship is 2 years. Okay, first year is F1, which is equivalent to our internship in India, and then they have to complete F2 as well to apply for residencies later on. So for them, internship is like 2 years. We join at the level of F2 because we have basically completed our F1 as well. But because we are not an F2 training program, we have to get some form signed to say that we are at their level. So this CREST form is just to say that, okay, we are at that level of F2 and we can apply for higher specialty training now. All right. But it is something which you don't need to worry about. Most consultants, if not most, there will be at least one consultant in your department who can sign you off for that. Okay, no one has really struggled. No one I know has really struggled for that form. Many people get it signed from India as well, as I said. So it's not a something which is going to cause any obstacles.
Thank you.
All right, Abhay, go ahead.
So after the core training, then we move on to the specialty. So,
Yeah.
sir, is there any selection process like interview or any other exam, or we straight away go to specialty directly?
So if you've completed your core training, so the first thing to become eligible for specialty training is you need to have completed your MRCP or MRCS if you're in surgical training. Okay, so that's first thing. Without completing all the steps, you're not eligible for specialty training. Now, so you'll have to appear for interviews again. So even for specialty training, you will have a different application program. It's just like that. You apply in November. I think it's different for specialty training. The timeline is different for each specialty. For some it's October, for some it's August. All right, but the training process again will start in August, September, or October. All right, so you'll need to apply for the application. They will call you for an interview. They will look at your CV and they will ask you questions, of course. And after that, you will be ranked and then you will go into your training. So it's the same process as core training as well. You have to go through this process again.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Afzal?
Yeah. So actually, I have a second doubt. Like you mentioned in your presentation that having a publication under your hat is a good is a plus point for
Yeah.
you. So is the publication should be in the specialty you want to go, or it can be a generalized publication?
So for a non-training job, for your first job in UK, it doesn't matter. Any rubbish publication will do. Okay. If you're planning for, if you're applying to a specialty, then yes, it needs to be for that specialty. So let's say I want to do I've got a radiology publication. So my publication was in a radiology journal. Okay, because they do accept publications from other specialties as well, but you will get only 1 point for that. I had got a radiology publication. I got 2 points for that. 2 points is the maximum number of points. Now there's something I can. So let's say if you're applying for medicine, okay. So there are different points for the type of publications you will have. So if you are applying for internal medicine training, just go to this website called IMT Recruitment. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So each specialty has got its own what we say, the website, and think application scoring. Yeah, so there you go. So if you go into the application scoring, you will get everything. Okay, so let's say I go to publication. So if you see, you get 8 points if you are the first author or joint first author of 2 or more PubMed indexed research publication. Okay, so you get the full points. 8 is the full points. And then as you see, if you scroll down, there are different points for different things. Okay, so let's say if you've got a simple publication which is not a PubMed indexed journal, okay. So let's say you've just published one or more abstracts in non-peer reviewed articles or published in articles that are not PubMed cited. So PubMed is a website where you've got all different journals, but it's more authentic. So if you've got a publication in a non-PubMed indexed journal, you only get 2 points. Okay. So so this is just for medicine. Each specialty has got its own point system. So as I said, for radiology, it's different. For radiology, you don't need to have your publication in a PubMed index journal. Any journal would do. Okay. So my publication was in a very, it was not a PubMed index journal. It was not a reputed journal. Okay. So each specialty, you just need to go on the website and look for the point system. So if you're planning seriously, just start working according to that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Abhay, you had a question? Is it Abhay? Okay, right. So anyone else? So I don't think so I've got anyone's hands up now. So anyway, you can. So I'll just show you this. If you want to contact me, if you've got any personal doubts, if you want me to review your CV, then you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, and either you can email me on, that's my email ID. Okay. So Muskaan, I'll let you, oh, we've got Amir. Amir, go ahead. Amir?
Hello, sir, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, sir, please, I just want to ask like any brief idea about like neurosurgery specialty in UK. Yeah, like is it because what we're hearing like from people like is impossible to get like neurosurgery or neurology in UK. So I just want your idea about that.
So neurosurgery, yes, it is the most competitive specialty. Okay, so first things, there are two pathways. Either you go into neurosurgery as ST3, so you complete your core training, and then you apply for specialty training. Okay, so you've done your core surgical training, and then you sit for the specialty training in neurosurgery. All right. Now they have created a separate pathway as well. You can do a neurosurgery as a run-through training as well. So I've talked about that in the presentation. So you can apply for run-through neurosurgery pathway. So you start from ST1 and you go all the way to ST8, the 8 years. So if you're applying for run-through training, you've got more chances. Okay. But if you're applying after core surgical training, so last year they only had one post for neurosurgery. So you can imagine there's just one post for neurosurgery last year and there were 20 applicants. So you can see it's the most competitive specialty in UK. But if you apply as a run-through training, it's more probably more chances of getting into neurosurgery. But yes, neurosurgery and cardiosurgery are going to be difficult to get into UK.
Okay, sir. But there is chance.
Of course, there is chance, definitely. I don't know about neurosurgery, but I've got friends in different surgical programs. One of them recently got into core surgical program. One of them I know is from urology. And I think I've got friends in different specialties. I don't know about neurosurgery because, as I mentioned, there was just one post in neurosurgery. So I don't know who that one person was, but I've got friends in different specialties otherwise. And they were competitive specialties, OBG, and I myself am going into radiology. So it is definitely possible. And the thing to note is, so I think 2 years back, it was the first time that the most, so you've got something called as the GMC register, okay? So it's like the people, all the doctors registered with General Medical Council. So for the first time, 2 years back, the number of the doctors on GMC registered, so you had 50% of them who were immigrants, okay? So 50% of GMC doctors are actually immigrants. They're not British. Okay, so you see, when you come here to UK, when you start working here, you realize that 50% of your staff is actually going to be immigrants. There'll be Asians, there'll be people from different Middle Eastern countries or European countries rather than being British.
Yes, sir.
Right, Muskaan?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
So one last doubt. So
Yeah.
for run-through programs, so for specialty, do we have to give interviews again, or we'll get our choice of branch for specialty in run-through programs like pediatrics?
So for run-through programs, you have to sit for interview only once. Once you have got in, there is nothing else you're going to do. Okay, the only thing you left is to complete your MRC exams. Okay, so let's say you are planning for pediatrics, you give your interview for ST1 pediatrics, you got into ST1, that's the end of it. You're not going to sit for interview again in the next 8 years of your training. Similarly, I've got into radiology and starting as ST1, I don't have to give any other interview throughout my 5 years. So that's the end of it. You only give interview once in run-through training.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Right. Someone else's hand was up.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask, right now I don't have any research in my name. So it won't matter in my non-training job, but it will matter in my training job. So should I do the research work in during my job time period? Will I get any chance of doing any research work during that period after getting a job?
Yeah, so as I said, I did not have anything. Okay, I was in a similar position and I prepared my portfolio in 4 months for radiology. Okay, you can do most of the things required on that list on the point scoring system while in UK. Now, there are some certain things which you don't even realize that you might have done back home. Okay, so 2 things on my portfolio were a health camp which I had organized in India. Okay, so my mom runs an NGO in India, and I used to do health camps, free health camps for that. So I scored 2 points for that. I just got a certificate made and I showed that in my portfolio and I got 2 points for that. So there are some things like that which you might have done in India and you don't even realize. But otherwise, else, you can still do most of the things. Okay, you can do all your audits. I did my publication while in UK, and you can organize teaching sessions again. So you can do everything while in UK. There's nothing to worry about if you haven't done anything so far. Okay.
Yes, sir. One more question. After giving PLAB 2 exam, are there any chances that we might not land up in a job after giving a PLAB 2?
So these days it takes about at least 2 to 3 months. Okay, at least 2 to 3 months for getting a job. It took me, so as I said, in 2018, it took me at least a month before I started getting interviews. I got my registration in October and I got my interview for my current job in November. These days it takes longer because the competition has increased. So as I said, if you have done your clinical attachment, what might happen is you might get a job offered there and then itself while doing your clinical attachment. So what you will do is you will give your PLAB 2 exam, you go for your clinical attachment while waiting for the result, your consultant gets impressed by you and they offer you a job interview. So what you can do is you can tell them, once I get my PLAB 2 result, I can straight away come for an interview and they'll give you the job. Okay, that's why I said, if you do a clinical attachment, things will become quicker. Answer to your question is yes. There are, I've seen people who have waited for even 5 or 6 months before getting a job. Okay, so again, that uncertainty thing. All right, there are very few people though. Okay, I don't recall anyone who has not got a job, like absolutely did not get any interviews. All right, so I know about 100 people from my PLAB 2 group. They're all around the UK now. Not a single one of them is in India. They're all working in UK. Okay, some took longer to get a job, some took 4 or 5 months, some people took like maybe a week. So it depends on the circumstances and how your CV is, but ultimately everyone gets a job. Now what's been happening else is people are directly applying for training jobs as well. So for, let's say you've been waiting from January to November for getting a job and you have not got any job. So what you do is you are working back home as well and you start applying for a training application in November. So some people are doing that as well to get into the NHS. So it's not recommended, but if you have been waiting so long, there is a route some way or the other to get into it. But as I said, I don't know anyone from my group who did not get a job and had to go back. All right. So I think we have addressed all the questions. Muskaan, you want to say anything?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
Thank you
One
so much,
last.
sir, for.
Sorry, is there someone else?
Yes, sir. One last question. After giving PLAB 2 exam, and what are we supposed to do? Can you explain more about this clinical attachment as soon as I get my PLAB 2 results?
Yeah. So clinical attachment, you're not going to do it after your PLAB 2 result. You're going to do it during your after your PLAB 2 exam. Okay. So what happens is, let's say you have you're planning to come and give your PLAB 2 in September. Okay. So you will come to UK in July. You'll do your coaching in July. You'll self-study and practice in groups in July and August, and ultimately give your exam in September. Immediately after completing your PLAB 2, you go to the hospital where you have planned to do your attachment, and you do your attachment there itself. And once you're done with the attachment, by that time you might get your PLAB 2 result. So if you're planning to do an attachment, you need to start planning it early. You need to start planning it while you are in India itself, because the whole process might take 2 or 3 months. You need to mail the medical staffing, as I mentioned. You need to mail the medical staffing of the hospital you're planning to do your attachment. They will send you out the forms and all the requirements, most of them which can be done while you are in the UK. Okay, but you need to start planning ahead, because the replies and everything might take time, because ultimately it's the HR people who are dealing with that, and they are always lazy, you know that. So when you are in India, just before when you've already got your visa, so the best time is once you've got your visa, mail the hospital, ask for that attachment, and once you're done with your PLAB 2, you can start that attachment. So the date you need to give them that is after your PLAB 2 exam. So let's say a week after your PLAB 2. So that's how this works for attachment. If you can do it after your PLAB 2 result as well, because you will still have the visa for 6 months. But it's best to just get it done within that time frame, because you'll be waiting for a month for your result. So you've got free time in between. So just do it during that time, I would say. Okay. So I guess, yeah. So again, if you want to contact me, so that's you can find, my name. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or email me, and I'll be happy to answer any of your personal queries as well. All right, and good luck to everyone. So Muskaan, thank you again for
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for
organizing the
taking out your
session.
precious time.
No, it's fine. I'm on annual leave for 2 weeks now, so I've got all the time at the moment. But thank you all, everyone else as well, for attending. And yeah, thank you, Muskaan, again for organizing it. And
Thank you, sir.
take care. Okay. So I'll send a link to the recording once
Yes, sir.
it will take about 2-3 hours before it completes the file. Okay. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.